Today I'm hanging out with Mallory Kauffman. Mallory is the furthest shot putter in Penn State history, with a PR of 18 meters or 59 feet and 3/4 inches. Mallory has qualified for the NCAA championships 3 times, with her highest finish of 6th place. Mallory is a multi-time Big Ten scorer, with the most recent finish of runner-up at the 2024 Indoor Championships. Mallory's story is one of hard work, belief in yourself, and holding yourself and your training partners accountable. Thanks for being on and sharing your story. But so my first question is what things do you do well?
Okay. I think I have a pretty good work ethic. I like to work hard. I feel like that is the only reason I'm confident in my throws when I do throw far. Is I base it off of, like, do I deserve to throw far? So that's nice. Kind of in the off season where I really focus on putting in the work in the weight room. Because obviously no one wants to do 8 reps at Hatfields, but you have to do those. You have to do those if you want to throw far. So that's kind of what keeps me, like, pushing through on the days that, like, you don't want to do things. Of, like, this is kind of where you take a step and work, outwork the other people you're competing against. I always try to think of, like, a bucket and, like, how much sweat can you fill it up with.
Oh,
like,
nice.
That's kind of
That's
like
a good visual.
Yeah, like that was something I always, like, picture in the summer of, like, how much sweat work are you putting in?
Nice.
And is that, are you filling up your bucket more than the people you're competing against?
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
It's a little disgusting if you picture it too much.
Yeah, no, but it's good. You know, he's a lot of people's, like, punching a time card or whatever, but literally filling a bucket with sweat. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's sweat equity.
Yeah.
Nice. So you say, like, you work hard, like, what, or you're motivated, or I would say motivated, but you work hard. Like, what is working hard to you? How do you define that?
I think that it's what you do on, like, the days you don't want to do it. I think everyone has the ability to work hard and put in the effort, but it's like, are you doing the small things? Like diet. Are you taking care of your sleep? Are you taking care of your body? Are you stretching? Like, attention to the small details that a lot of times can get lost in, like, the mix of things.
Right.
So I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I do this all the time, but when I have the time, it's easy to, like, just be like, oh, if I do this, my practice today might go better, or my competition this weekend, like, I won't have that standing in the way. No,
I've defined it as people say you work hard or you're coachable maybe by just doing what you're told. And that's just, like, the minimum, right? So finding ways to do things that are a little bit extra that maybe set you apart. And I think that's, everybody says I work hard, but how much are you actually doing extra? Are you reading between the lines? And that's really like the difference between an okay career and a phenomenal career, right? Is when you're like, well, we got to work on this technique thing. I'm going to, like, if I don't get in trouble, it's not really a big deal. Or it's like, no, I need to really get good at this, or I need to refine this much more. And I think that's the difference between working hard and just, not getting in trouble type of thing. So, and that level of how much better can I get if I maximize this now?
Yeah. And especially with your program, like, the biggest thing I've learned is doing the things that you don't tell us to do. Like, a good warm up, like, that's really important. And it's not, you don't lay it out step by step. I mean, you would if someone asked, but I'm not, like, the things you're not writing in our program, like the stretching, the cool down, the rehab, the diet, like, that's the stuff I think that makes your programs, like, 10 times more successful.
For sure.
Like, if I was just to do what you had on the paper, I was like, oh, yeah, get better. But I think it can speed it up. It can speed it up big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Anything else that you feel like? How else do you fill up the bucket?
I think I like to learn. I like to really, like, soak in the information about the sport. Like, when I came in as a freshman, it was, like, learning how to rotate in the shot put. And I had so many people that were rotating and above me, and I've been doing it for many years, and they had a lot of knowledge. So to kind of pick and choose like pieces and kind of test the waters of what works for me and what may work for other people, but that just helps like understand like the science behind it. I think that's really big of, you know, you're spinning in a circle to throw a ball far. Like there's some science behind it, but there's also like sometimes you have to turn off your brain. So finding a good balance between those two things of like, I can have a really technical day and focus on what it looks like, but at the end of the day, I need to make the ball go far. Right. So like, how can I balance between those two? And sometimes I get a little iffy. Like I only worry about how far the ball goes. So just trying to remember that there's two sides to it.
For sure. Well, I think when you're learning any skill, or like say you're a student of the sport, there's two things, and with age of information, there's tons of data out there on what's the perfect way to spin. But like you touched on that too, because you can learn a style, and there's so many different styles out there. And maybe that works for you, like certain styles work for you, but really at the end of the day, you touched on it too, is there's fundamentals that make the ball go far. And that's a style might kind of be a cheat code to kind of trick you into things, but really you want to find the fundamentals. And being able to discern that, especially when you're like, hey, this person gets out of the back this way, and this person gets out of the back this way. What's important is you're creating force across the circle, right? So, and then you're allowing yourself to hit a good position. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, there's different styles to that, but also the fundamentals is getting across well. So being able to pick those apart and see the forest from the trees is a good skill for sure too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think coming in as a glider, like I knew the feeling of punching the ball and like being behind the ball. And it was always my goal just to find that feeling in the throw. And like, it's really easy to lose that, especially in practice of like, you're chasing the ball the whole way out through and you really feel that drive. But like, that's always been my goal of feel that's a good throw.
Right.
It might look a little ugly, but if I feel a push on the ball, I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. Far is never ugly. It might not look super clean, but far is always good, and everybody moves differently. Like you don't necessarily have to have like a long or like a heavy bench press. You might throw differently if you have that, as opposed to a long strike on it, and things just look different. And I think the picture of ideal technique getting out over the board kind of gets lost on some people, but I think you have a good idea, as you said, as a glider, like being linear on it all the way out and still being able to turn and save it. So it looks different than most people think on paper. So that's good. Yeah. We also didn't touch on your high school, because you're a 46-foot shot putter. 48 foot. Sorry. Should check my notes.
Take your back.
48 foot shot. It was 46 as a junior, right?
45.
Yeah, just
just under.
Yeah. So that's when you were recruited. That's where all the stories came. I was like, oh, it's a 45, 46. But it's a junior. Yeah. So that was my memory. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, high school was a very, very big learning experience. I was really lucky to have a coach who really understands the sport and like the fundamentals of like power makes the ball go. And so, I mean, he really instilled drills. I did thousands and thousands and thousands of drills, and just like fundamental weightlifting, like get the bench strong, get the squat strong, and like, let's be explosive. So I was lucky to have those fundamentals coming in of just like an understanding of the sport. Like that's sometimes is really hard to teach, like just accelerating things. Also throwing hay bales growing up, that really helped. So it was just kind of, I'm very lucky to have that coming in, and that kind of saved me a few steps, a few months, probably a year of learning that once I got here. Yeah, farm girl strength. Yeah. It's definitely an advantage. Oh yeah, 100%. Sure. 100%. Anything else you feel like you do well? I mean, I like to think I'm coachable. Once I trust my coach, I'm very open. Like, you tell me to jump that or go do that, I'll do it. I very much believe in what we're doing, and I trust it, and I try to keep the doubts pushed down as much as I can. I mean, everybody has doubts, it's just a matter of how you handle those when they come up. But it's very nice to be in a position where I don't have doubts about like the program or
the coaching or anything like that. So
yeah, and that's something I always want to emphasize, but I kind of fail to do that sometimes because I don't want to put people in a box. But I have infradian rhythms. Have I talked to you about these? So like every athlete has ups and downs, peaks and valleys with any program you're doing. And then when I say program, it's like the ball sets we're on or the number of throws we're doing. So everybody goes through this. There's some kind of up and down. You're like, well, I'm down. I should panic and change things. But I don't want to put people in a box and say, well, you can't throw certain distances, but it's going to be very difficult to do that. It's like, yeah, I'm going to come back up when the time I do enough sessions or I do enough work in there. And just knowing that, hey, this is, if I can throw well when I'm down, then that's an indicator of what I'm going to do when I'm ready to really throw far. So.
Yeah, definitely. I don't panic as much as I used to. I mean, it's definitely there like, oh, that's not going too great. But seeing how it worked, like being a second year, like working with you, seeing the progress and how it ended at like the end of the season, it makes it a lot easier to be like, oh, this is no big deal. I know it's going to be there when the time comes and like the program works out to it. It's just, you got to definitely remember the hills and the valleys.
Yep. Well, and keep your poise, right? And so you say like, hey, I'm coachable. I'll do what I'm told, but also like, hey, I got to maintain poise and confidence in yourself and the process that you have. So last year, obviously, there was a lot of getting to know that and feeling that, but like, yeah, you don't panic when, say, 16 feels so hard, but you're still throwing 16s. There was a time where maybe that would be a little tough. So you're like, I'm throwing 16s and I'm feeling good technique. And then it just pops and it's popping and, this feels easy. So you just got to wait for those.
And it was definitely something to learn of like the frustration of when you are down in that like valley and the low point. It's so easy to just get angry and like just keep walking in a circle and just being like, I'm just going to throw this as hard as I can to see if I can make it go far. Like that used to be my process of like when I'm struggling, like if I can just see it go far, I'm good. And it's like, that's not how it works. So just being able to be like, keep my head screwed on as straight as I can during it has been the best. And it's easy with you too, because you're like, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, okay, that makes it better. You're not like freaking out. So it's good to see that.
Yeah, no, it was about a year ago now where we sat down after indoor and you like just laid out for me. Like, I just want to be better than I have been. I was like, well, don't, like, preseason is just practice competition. Like, take your marks, your average marks for the last few trainings and just try to beat that and be a little consistent or get a little bit further than that. And then the only time that matters is championship season. And you're like, you can see that the wheels turn. It's like, oh, that makes way more sense than trying to throw a PR every week like you were doing indoors last year. Like, I'm just right at the school record. I just want to break this. And I'm on the cusp. And you kept throwing like over it and warm-ups and different things that way. And you can see the frustration just mounting and mounting. And I was like, no, don't worry about all that. If you feel good and you're competing for yourself, it's just practice. Competitions are practice for what you want to do at championships. And
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to some of those stories later, but
it was an interesting season and year. A lot of learning. A lot of learning came from it.
Yeah, but epic season.
Yeah.
It was
fun.
Yeah. Anything else you feel like you do well?
Not anything right now.
You touched on the big ones. I think you talk about being hard, working hard, and being coachable, and doing the studying side of the stuff, which feels very serious. But I think you're also very lighthearted at training too, which I think is a great balance to strike. You don't necessarily get off screwing around all the time, lack of focus. But I think, you've fallen and laughed about it. Yeah.
Well, I always say for the past 5 years, coming to practice every day has been the best part of my day. Yeah. And that's hard to there's been times where I'm like, do I really want to do this today? Yeah. Or I'd rather, lay in bed, watch a movie, that kind of thing. But it is these are the people in this building are some of my favorite people in the world. So it's fun to be here and be outside and doing the sport I love around a great group of people. It's hard to be too upset sometimes. It's wow, that's happened this past weekend. I didn't have the performance I wanted, and I was kind of sitting there moping a little bit. And I was why am I'm in Florida, in the sunshine, I get to travel here for free. I'm how can you be upset? Sometimes it's good to look away from the numbers and just think about like, what am I going to look back on in 20 years and enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that perspective is amazing. Because a lot of times you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
You know, like, can I get through this workout? Can I get through this week? Can I get through this assignment? And you just end up surviving your way through a whole semester, and you look back like, oh shoot.
Yeah. Like sometimes
what did I get out of this?
People get so like upset if we have to lift early or something. I'm like, in 10 years, like I'm gonna miss this so much. Like it's fun to be able to do that and like do it with like a great group of people. Like that makes it
for sure.
That makes it so much better.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on like heavy leg lifts and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, I wish I could still get after it and do that like I used to.
And I think it's good now that I'm like the older one in the group. So like I have people who are out of it and they're saying how much they miss it and this and that. Like they're, you know, they wish they could be back. It makes it kind of like check myself sometimes and be like, it's going to come to an end eventually.
Yes.
So like just enjoy it and have a good outlook while I can.
For sure. No, you do a good job with that for sure. Yeah, that's it. You laugh off your failures a lot. There's times where you get mad or, you know, you're frustrated and don't want to talk to somebody for a bit, but which is normal. And then I think after that, you're able to, you know, laugh at Longhorn Steakhouse and have a good time just hours after.
I definitely try to take some time. Like I know when I'm mad and I know when I'm frustrated and I get in my head and I like have all these things going. I'm like, it's better for me to just take a step away than to like snap and regret it later on. So I do really just take some time, like just let me be alone for a little bit. It makes it easier to kind of bring myself back. Yeah,
and that stuff as a coach too, because you're like, oh, I just always want to keep helping. I want to help people feel better, but like you can't cheat somebody of that process either. It's always a balance. You're like, hey, it's a process. Like this is just part of the process for you getting ready to throw far when you need to. You know, just inch by inch, keep getting better. And you know, I'm here to help with that. But sometimes it's like I didn't do what I wanted. I made some mistakes. You need that time to process. So it's always a balance between like, hey, let's take this moment to be motivated for Monday. And other times like, hey, they need some time to process. And it's always hard for a coach to balance, but I think you're enough open about it that you're stomping off, you know, I'll give you a fist bump or something like that, like hanging there.
Yeah, like, I'm definitely not like a chat about it directly after. Give me a day or two, and we'll talk about it later, but not in the moment. And that's always, I mean, luckily, like my parents, my friends are pretty good at being like, you're fine, relax, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I'm like, okay. Take some deep breaths and I'm good. But
no, my mom would always tell me, it's like, well, you're the cutest one out there. So
they're not telling me that, which is rude. They should be. That would make me feel better afterwards.
So no matter how bad I did, I always could count on my mom. Well, you're the cutest one. That would make me laugh a little bit, lighthearted, and my mom's just such a sweetheart. So your mom's a sweetheart a different way, but like, you know,
it is interesting.
Having a support structure that says, hey, there's more to you outside of this. That, you know, don't let this define you. Keep doing it is, as I think, the overall message. So I always like to tell this story of during COVID, we were indoor big tents at Spire, and there were no fans allowed. Nobody was allowed, parents or anything. And I had a pretty good mark going in. So it's the first time I had like pressure of score for the team. And I think there was like, oh, if I throw well, I could probably medal. And I threw terrible. So bad, didn't even make finals. And I remember crying behind this like poster. They had this like big life-size thing, and I like tucked in the corner, and I could not snap myself out of it. So I called Jean. She's the only one, like I called my parents, and they were like, oh, it's okay. And I could not snap myself out of it. And I called her like, I need you to yell at me. I need you to yell at me. And she ripped into me on the phone, and it was good. I was like, okay, I just needed to like snap out of it, but sometimes it is. So every time I go there, I point out the corner. I'm like, I sat back there for like an hour, just a mess. And Jean, out of everyone, was the one to snap me out of it. So it was definitely interesting. Good teammates. Good Gino. But those are those moments too that define you, right? When you're like, hey, I was expected to medal, and then I struggled. I fell apart, and was like, that motivation to like, this will never happen to me again. Those are defining moments, and you have to go through that. The sooner a good athlete can go through that, the better off they are. And I firmly believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those struggles. And it's kind of nice too, like you can go into meets now, it's like, it can't get worse than that. Exactly. I am more confident than I am, and I know that's not going to happen. So it's just kind of like, it's like you said, like just building slowly. Like sometimes you don't have to make that massive jump that you're always looking for. Like those small steps definitely helped. Yeah.
Well, I think the other side of that too is like, I think we're in the track and field world is all stats. You know, it's all stats. You're thinking like, oh, on paper, I'm supposed to medal. But really, you all have a 0. And it's a weird thing is like, you want to build the confidence of, hey, I'm capable of medaling. But we all started at 0. If I don't even get a mark, I take last place, you know? And like that reality of I have to compete on the day is sometimes lost in our sport, which is kind of wild because other times like, yeah, I'm so good. I'm so far ahead of everybody that even if I fall flat on my face, I'll still win. It's kind of the picture perfect dream, but that's almost never reality. Yeah. Especially this day and age, like everybody's doing so well. Yeah. And you know, definitely. You have to live in those moments and know that that's there. Nothing's handed to you, and you have to earn it. You have to take it. And I think that's something. We're going to speak about indoor a little bit. That was a moment where you just stepped up and took it. You know, so that was awesome. But anything else you want to touch on?
I don't know exactly for like the strength side. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, you're tall and long levers, but I think everything else has been stuff that is a learned experience. I think that's a good takeaway. I think most throwers, even if you have all the tools, most of the things that define success is the learned aspect. So that's good. Is there any things you struggled with to shift gears?
Yeah, lots of things.
That you wish you would have known sooner? I know we kind of touched on some of this, but
I mean, I think just like, and this is something I still struggle with, is like trying not to focus on the numbers. It is such especially like I've been able to have big marks and then like I kind of have an outlier, and then working my average back up to that has always been kind of a struggle for me. Like every year I had a big mark, then the next year was like, okay, I'm not quite throwing that yet. So getting back to that, it's always difficult for me because that's just how it was like instilled in my brain of every meet. The goal is to PR, PR. Throw farther than you did the last meet. And that's at this level is really difficult to do. So just like not feeling like a failure when you don't PR is something that's been really difficult for me. Right. Because then people ask you like, oh, how'd you do it? It's like, what do you say? Oh, I didn't PR, but it was good. Yeah. But it wasn't. It's like, it's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around the competing side of it. But it's been being able to just focus on Big Tens, regionals, nationals, and whatever comes after that has been really helpful. It's like, if I throw far this weekend, like that's wonderful. But if not, like I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Yeah. So it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some people that puts more pressure on them, but at the end of the day, the only time that matters is those championships, and that's a lot of pressure. I think that's the hardest part, especially when we're kind of in a day of an age of avoiding pressure. But really, like, pressure is your friend. Stress is your friend. That's how we get good at things. Yeah. So you want to take on just as much as you need to keep developing, and that's the moving target, so to speak, because I don't know how much I need at all times, but we apply a little bit more pressure, and then we can reel it back in if we need. But I was going to touch on, too, as you're speaking about this, there's two types of throwers, and everybody wishes they pine after the other one. So there's the throwers that are just super consistent. They throw, dang near their PR all the time. And they're like, I just want to get a big jump. And then there's the outlier throwers that they'll throw a big throw and they're like, how the heck did I do that? I need to get back to that. And they live down here. And so they just kind of like ride the peaks or ride the highs, but they like spend most of their time down below. And everyone wants to be the other one, which is kind of the human experience, right? Definitely. We're just like, I just want this outlier. When you're super consistent, can I just have this big throw, this big bump out of nowhere? because I'm just consistent. It's so frustrating. And if you look, you'll see it all levels.
Yeah, that's
all
true.
levels. They're just like super consistent. And as coaches are like, hey, we just want consistency, but then you just get beat by those outlier throwers at random times. Like, I didn't even see him coming,
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I can't even repeat this. They have no clue how to do it.
That is interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, see, I could do a better job of telling these things, because it's like, hey, you're an outlier type of thrower. I just don't like putting people in boxes.
Yeah.
Because, we want the consistency at a slightly better level. Because regardless of what that is, we're trying to raise the floor, right? And even if you have a big outlier, you're like, oh, well, I still want my floor to be, say at the NCAA level, can I be somewhere near high 16, low 17s? I make finals no matter where, I make it through regionals. If I just throw 17s, I'm there. But you can have this outlier big throw and, kind of think like, oh, I'm entitled to that. Whereas like, nah, you're more of that outlier thrower. You got to be ready for that when the moment happens. So.
Yeah. And that's interesting.
Yeah,
I used to think I was a consistent.
Yeah.
But like in the past years, I have outlier throws, and I love it. Like I wouldn't change that. Obviously, like it makes. That's what I think this sport is all about. Is those days where you're like, how did that happen? It's like it's fun, and it's fun when it lines up at the right time.
Yep. And the hardest part is with all that is the powerlessness that you experience either way. Like, I just don't have that gear to do different. And that's where people start pining after. It's like, well, I'm just not as talented. Like, I don't have the technical mind to be that consistent, or I don't have the horsepower to be an outlier. It's like, no, that's not really how it is. I think that's just like, that's how you generate force. You can do it more slow and steady or consistently. And then other people are like, hey, I'm here, and then I got to crash down a little bit. And it's just embracing which type you are. So,
and it's kind of, I'm thinking about like just the competition side. It is fun to be in a competition and kind of have that. Because the older I've gotten, it's been more, I've never looked at it as a me versus this girl or me versus this school, but it's fun to like, I compete with a lot of the same girls at the higher level in the NCAA. And it's fun to be like, oh, you don't know what I'm going to throw, or like, you never know what they're going to throw. It's like, kind of the girls who are consistent. And then there's a few where you're like, oh, you better hope. Like, you never know who's going to pop one out there. And that's why like the big meets are so fun.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like I said, touch on one of your strengths is being ready for that. Did I fill the sweat bucket up enough to earn the right to be here and in this? And you balance those things with also like knowing how you operate. So it's very good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Any other things you struggled with that you've gotten better at that you wish you would have known sooner?
Probably the confidence. I think that was a very big one.
Yeah.
And that's still, like, again, these are all things I struggle with and still struggle with. But just being like first, like a 6 foot tall, like a built woman, like it wasn't always like easy to be confident in like my body, but now it's like, oh, I am a 6 foot tall built woman. Like, and that's wonderful for the sport I am in. Like, I wouldn't want to be smaller in any way. So like just kind of getting comfortable with my body and using it for like to throw a ball far. It's been a lot. So like, and I think getting stronger with like that has helped it a lot. It's
for
like,
sure.
Oh, well, my legs are massive, but it's like, okay, well, I'm lifting like this heavy weight so often. So like it lines up. But yeah, it's been interesting, right? It's been good. I think everyone struggles with that. It's just like a matter of how you can kind of change your outlook and kind of mend it to what it needs to be.
You know what's funny to me, because this is separate, since you bring up confidence, is maybe like a self-esteem type of thing. And this isn't always true, but the most beautiful people that I've ever known, run into, the most put together, are the least confident people. They always have to be done up. They work harder to look a certain way, and they do things that way. So they're actually lacking in confidence. They're looking for that outward, affirmation of, hey, you're a beautiful person, or, your body looks great, or whatever that is. And it's like, they don't actually have confidence. They're just, the lack of confidence is what motivates them to keep being better at this. And I don't say this lightly, because I don't want to put words in there, but like, being confident with how you are is just a decision. Like, and that's what you touched on, is like, hey, I'm going to be a bigger bodied person no matter what I do. No matter what I'm just going to be tall. And like accepting myself and believing like, hey, I am my own unique thing, and that I have value. I have things like that. Is just a decision. It's so weird to me. It's like, hey, I'm going to own what I have now, and if I want to improve things, I can do that. And so you take control of that decision, that power. So a lot of times people are just looking for that outward, like validation that this is fine, and especially in college, like you want relationships, you want things like that. But confidence is the most best thing you can do. So great English right there. But it's the best thing you can have is confidence, and just saying like, hey, I'm happy with who I am and what I do, and and I want to build into other things that are important to me.
100%.
And you can't put a price tag on that. I would say confidence is everything. Like, I believe in myself now and my ability to improve, and that's just confidence, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And we're all struggling with that.
Yeah. I think my biggest one was like, I wasn't overly hunting for like outside kind of ways to build it up. It was more like a resume, like my throwing resume. That's what gives me confidence of like, oh, I'm going to go into a meet and have more people know kind of who I am, like, and be like, oh, look at her throw. Like that looks good. Or like, look at this small piece, and kind of that way. I used to really worry about like what people thought of me, or like, especially while I was throwing, of like, oh my gosh, are they going to judge me like on how I'm warming up? And now I'm like, I could care less. Honestly, it's well, like, and you see so many different things, and I like see things and I'm like, oh, I really don't care at all. Like it doesn't phase my mind. And I'm like, people are seeing me and doing the same thing. They're like, oh, it doesn't even, I'm not even like a split second in their brain. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Well, so training confidence, and you touched on this earlier with one of your strengths, is you're building confidence as you practice well. And that's why it's important to pay attention to how far you're throwing, how much you're saving your throws, how consistently you're doing good technique through the circle, because that's really how you build your confidence. Nothing else matters, right? So I think some people try to fake it and posture, and it's like, oh, bravado type of stuff. But really, if you build your confidence in how I train and how I practice well, then you have confidence. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, and then you can kind of like, oh, well, that seems something that might help me with what I'm working on. And so you can watch other people and do what they're doing, or implement some of the things that you might see, like, hey, that helps my system or my process. But you're building up that true confidence, as if I do X in the circle, I get X distance. And if I sharpen that just enough with some adrenaline or something else, or I'm in nice weather or a good circle, then I can do even better. And that's the real type of confidence we aspire to. So that's definitely good. And finding that validation in you. Start soon. If you're ever watching this, confidence is everything. Confidence is everything. If you take nothing else, like, be confident in what you're doing.
And I wish it was that easy sometimes. Like, and there's been times like when I compete, I try to be very, very like in the moment. I pace. I'm saying things to myself, and most of the time I can get to the level I want to be, but like when I am feeling like in the middle of a competition, like I have those doubts and I'm not very confident. Like sometimes it's easy as like just stand up and like just put your shoulders back. Like it's so easy to like kind of like curl into like a little ball. Like that's helped me big times to be like just put your shoulders back. And like then I'm like, oh, I'm taller than most of the people here. Like, that's something I can be confident about. Like you have to remind yourself, like, I used to always tell myself, like, I'm a Penn State Division I thrower. Like, this is the dream. I've achieved many goals, and it's just like kind of that, I call it like the mirror talk, like what you say to yourself in the mirror. Like, that really, really helps. And that can build it up big time. There's some diamonds in that statement right there too. That whole point there is like, you say like put your shoulders back, but if you're ever not feeling confident, this is just an easy trick. Take up space. That's just something biologically, if we're not feeling a certain way, we like,
shrink our space. But if you're like, you can actually like turn the corner by just spreading out, stretching out,
just sprawl out, you know?
broaden your space. It's true. Like if you're going into an interview, if you're going into a meet where you're like in line, just take up space. You know, like you own your space regardless. People, like you can own your bubble, and even if you're close, like just widen out. That's a great just little thing to keep in the back of your head if you're ever feeling nervous. And that's a skill that transcends track and field. Like, you know, you're having into a nervous thing, just spread out. Take up more space, you know, lift yourself up, broaden your shoulders, you know, widen your chest type of thing. Then like open up your space. That's a great one there. And then the other one too is tell yourself, you know, like you're a Penn State athlete. Like I've achieved something very few people can do in the general population. So it's like, this is the reality. I'm here. I've earned this already. And just tell yourself what you want to be. Don't listen to the doubts, you know, speak to yourself what you want. Don't listen to yourself, because your body's going to tell you, oh, you're too tired. You're too sleepy. You're not good enough. Like, no, tell yourself, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And that's a great, hopefully that's all right. School districts is calling, so I think my kid might be sick. So hopefully Jess can answer that. If not, I might have to break away. But but yeah, those are two good little nuggets, little diamonds there.
I mean, like the subconscious. This is something like my high school coach. He always talked about like the subconscious mind will do everything it can to break you down and make it like the toughest battle. Like it'll tell you you're terrible and you can't do it. And like that's in everybody. That little part of your brain is going to attack every doubt or every little piece that you have. But it's how you can like just sometimes just being like telling that part of your brain to shut up and just leave me alone. Like, it is being able to tune that side out, and like the nerves, especially at the big meets, like that's where I feel it the most of, oh, what if you don't throw far? It's like, well, okay, what if I do throw far? Like there's a rebuttal to kind of everything. If like you're tired, well, I've thrown PRs when I've had little hours of sleep. Like, oh, I'm not feeling strong. Okay. So you're feeling fast. Like there's different sides to everything, and being able to, I think, just kind of look at the positive side of everything is definitely tougher than it is to just say to do that. It's definitely like a big part of it.
When you're saying that too, I think about there's two types of motivations. There's avoiding the stick, or there's approaching the carrot, right? And most of us understand avoiding the stick, you know, the negative things. Like, well, what if I fail? What if I'm going to try to avoid this? And then you're in the recesses of your mind, you're actually telling yourself, don't try so hard, so the whipping, the beating won't be as bad. But then you're like, well, what about if I succeed and I do something amazing, and how fun would that be, you know, to get this trophy or get this accolade or get this school record? And like, that's really what I want to approach. And am I doing everything I can? And so people are always like, well, but what if I do all that and I fail? And again, that's a conscious choice to like say, but at least I tried my best. At the end of the day, you want to just make sure you're always trying your best. And you're telling yourself, hey, keep doing your best, because this avoiding the stick is much easier for a lot of people.
Definitely.
As always approaching the carrot. And I think that's a good skill.
And I think like that comes from failures. Like I've had failures where I've been done and I've, you know, reevaluated and been like, I didn't do enough. And that's probably the hardest pill to swallow. It's like, I didn't achieve my goals because of me. Like that was, I can't point fingers. I can't blame it on any, like I did not do enough. And it's very different from not reaching those goals and being able to say, oh, I did everything I could. So that's like, you are the master of your own body and your success. So like, it's very easy to say, oh, the circle or the officials or the travel or like those things. But it's like everyone's dealing with the same thing. So it's just a matter of like how you handle yourself.
Well, I say always control the controllables.
Yeah.
There's and as a thrower, you control the majority. Like the circle, you can do things to affect the circle. Bad weather, you can control a lot of things. You can't stop it from raining, but you can, adjust how you adjust your technique or how your preparation is and stuff. Like and that's why I love throwing, is you can continually get better. Like for a long time, there's a lot of ways to work around it until you have some kind of bad injury that prevents you from doing that. But you can always get better, so you're in control of a whole lot. And we can just keep getting better and better and better the more you do that. So take control of all these aspects. You're right. I mean, like people say like, oh, the circle, or like maybe blame my coach or the travel or something else. Like, you didn't train me right. I'm like, well, there's a whole lot like I can guide you to, but you have to walk the path as the athlete.
100%. And it's so easy to like push blame, like, because it's very difficult to say like, oh, it's my fault. Nobody wants to do that. You want to find everything you can, and I mean, I do it constantly. Of you want to push it out and blame everything else, but once you can kind of evaluate yourself and be like totally honest, that's when you're like, oh, there's a lot more to do here than I think there is. The door is open in so many ways.
As long as you have time, and most of us have time, the ideal is to realize it right away. So you have the most time to keep getting better at it. Most time, like people are like, oh, I finally figured it out. I'm finally in this sweet spot, and this, I'm losing the word, but this moment where you're like, hey, I understand everything. The transcendence of some form, but like serendipitous maybe is the word, but where you realize everything, like, oh, I wish I would have known that sooner. So being in control of all those things and knowing that, I think that's, and knowing like, hey, I can get better at this stuff, and I'm not going to play the blame game on anyone else other than me, because really at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to do the work. So that's good.
It's a big step to take. It's definitely a difficult one to do.
That's a good one, when you finally realize that everybody's gone through it. That's another thing I was going to say. I don't care what level you're at, how good of a thrower you are, we've all gone through it. We're like, well, at the end of the day, I can only blame myself. Once all the excuses fall apart, and some people have had a hard road to get there, but at the end of the day, it's on me. I got to get it done. And you just have a support system of people to help facilitate that. But at the end of the day, it's you. You're the one in the circle. Or on the runway.
And with like the coaches side, like I see so many athletes fall apart because of the coach. Like it's so, like saying, oh, well, my coach doesn't do this, or I wish my coach did that. And I think I think it was Ryan Whiting said, like, it doesn't matter who coaches me, I'm going to throw far. And that has been something like I've thought of since coming into college. I mean, I've had 3 very different coaches, and I've been able to work well with all 3 of them. So it's just like, it doesn't matter who your coach is. They want the best for you. They want to help you. And like, the goal is to throw far. And that's all you need. Like, obviously there's probably some coaches out there that don't have those pieces, but it's like being able to just work with people is the biggest thing. And like, that's why I think we get along very well.
For sure.
We work very well together.
There's some very strong-willed coaches that, like, I'll just say they have a lot of data. Or like, hey, this is something that's worked for a lot of people, and they're very strong-willed. Like, you have to do it this way. But on the flip side, like, if an athlete's like, give me the rope, if I hang, I'll come to you. Let me do my thing, and if I succeed, then I was right. And if not, then I'll come ask for help, and hopefully it's a working relationship, right? So like, hey, this has worked really well for other people. Maybe this will work for you. It's like, yeah, but I want to stay on this, and hopefully you're just building the athlete's confidence up, as opposed to like being strong-willed, like this is the only way to be good. And it's tough sometimes as a coach, because you're like, I'm pretty sure this is a better way, but you have to learn. The athlete has to learn. And you have to encourage a learning environment, not adherence to certain structures. And that's a tough balance, because a lot of times structures can help. So we're trying to juggle a lot of things on this side of the fence.
And I think that's why, like, I really enjoy your coaching style a lot, is because you have put your money where your mouth is. Like, you have proof. I mean, like, that's why I think, like, Brooke coming in and like you coaching Brooke, it's like, oh, he obviously knows what he's doing. Like, if he didn't, Brooke wouldn't be a world champion. But but you also allow like input. Like you've always been very respectful of like of what I want to say and like my input on technique or lifting or this and that. And you're like, yeah, like we can try it, but like this might work better. It's like, but you explain it. You're not just like, no, that's a dumb idea. We're not going to do that. You're very open and you work really well with, like I've seen a lot of different people with technical views and you work well with all of them. Like you're able to kind of mold, and I think that's important for the athlete and the coach. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, believe in what you're doing is the strongest thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You got to believe in it, and if it's everything I do, and you know, drinking from the fountain, and whatever I say goes, cool. But really, like I can only provide so much. You need to be taking in your own biofeedbacks, paying attention to what you're doing, and that's what I really want to encourage for most people is to know what they're doing, and then pay attention to the outcomes and. Nurturing that in as many people as I can, because some are just like, just do everything for me. Those are the ones that actually struggle. So I'm trying to nurture everybody into like take ownership of what you're doing, but I'm also here as your biggest fan, your biggest support structure, you know, trying to help you and motivate you to be better. So yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Compliments too. Yeah. It doesn't always feel like that. It's not always easy, and there's times like, you know, as a coach, you get frustrated. Oh, maybe I messed up by this, or I could be a certain way. Same doubts athletes have too. It's like, oh, maybe there's a better way to do this. But
no, you have a very easygoing way, a very easy to follow kind of training and coaching style, which makes it a lot. Yeah. It takes out a lot of the pressures from my side, so it's nice to be like. That's why I've come to you many times and been like, just tell me what to do. Like, I just need you to give me a list, and I will do it. But I need something, and you're very good at being like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, okay, just relax.
Yeah, I'll never forget my moments of that, because I would stress. Like I went to Dr. Bondarchuk and stressing like, I don't have an 8K hammer. Like, I have to have an 8K hammer, right? And he's like, no. 18 close enough. You're fine. I'm like, really? I've been like so picky about some of this stuff. I was like, no, stimulus similar. Like, don't worry. It's like, yeah, but this. Like, nah, no worries. You know? I just have some like, hey, there's just some benchmarks you need to adhere to. Like, this is a slightly heavier than your comp ball, and that's what we need. Like, are you sure? Like, no, you're fine. So,
yeah, it's definitely changed my perspective on throwing, of working with you, of like just being a lot more relaxed. Of like, it's not a big a deal as you think it is. Like, just as long as you're improving, and you can see, if you're not seeing it in the throws, you're seeing it in the weight room. So like, there's always something. There's always something to look.
As long as you're working hard, you're trying your best, and you're improving in as many areas as you possibly can. Let's not stress about some of the minutia. You know, you're working hard. You're
very good at being like, why are you so worked up? It's good. It works well.
Yeah, I appreciate being that person though. I do like athletes who are a little bit more high strung, so I can be the calmer force. The ones that are lower is like, we always are playing devil's advocate as coaches. The ones are like, no, it's fine. It's like, no, you need to work harder. I'm like, well, coach, I'm doing everything. You're like, nope, work harder. You know, so we always have to be that counterbalance. That's really our role as a coach, is to, you know, value the things that you're doing well, but also challenge other areas and have some solutions for that. Not just say like, hey, you're bad at this. Well, let's work on this by this. And, you know, when you're high strung, it's easy to be like, just relax a little bit. We're trying to move that.
Yeah, it's nice of like,
water level.
Like, I mean, you've coached at so many levels. So like going to nationals, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And you're just like, this isn't any bigger than like the world championship. So I'm like, okay, this isn't the biggest deal in the world to him, so it's not the biggest deal in the world to me.
Well, as a disclaimer, it is. I try to be the calmest one. Like the level, and this is something that's fascinating to me, is the level that matters to the athlete is the one that's primed for these amazing things, or the choke, right? That big, like, this is the point that matters, and how you do at those moments is super important. You know, like, I think it's fair to say, like, you're not going to go to the world championships, right? So like NCAAs and being an All-American, like, that's the level, and you slayed it. You know, like, you absolutely crushed it, but it wasn't this easy thing either, you know. But I knew that you were ready to go. Your preparation, you'd sweated in that bucket plenty. Your cup runneth over. So it's like I knew you were going to throw far if you just kept your head on and you were let the technique and let your poise overcome it. Because as a coach, and this is something here, if you're a coach watching this, we have the power to destroy things on those days. We don't have the power to fix it or create it on those days. We're creating that day after day after day from the moment the season starts. But we can get to that day and destroy it. We can get there and be like, you're not ready. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, we should panic right now. I'm like, no, that'll never be me.
And it just takes away like an extra factor. Because you're the one throwing the ball, but it's us working together and we've worked together and up until that point. So like, I mean, you can feel the energy. Like I could like if you were nervous and freaking out, like I would be able to tell, but you're just very, like you're always very calm. And even though you might not be, but to me, I've always felt like, okay, it's not, I don't have to worry about him freaking out or like you being disappointed in me. Like you've always been very, and that takes away like, tons and tons of stress.
I'm proud of preparation. That's what makes me the most proud, right? And on the day, I'm just proud of the preparation, and I'm proud of, and I find things to be proud of, right? And I think that's, when you walk away, and I just recently posted something on this too, is like not pursuing happiness, we're pursuing experience. And that's so profound. This is an experience. Like we're trying to have a good experience through this and try to learn from these things. And I want you to have a good experience. I'm not trying to, take this away. It's already stressful enough. It's hard to be top 8, and out of the thousands of women who throw, being top 8 in this country is phenomenal accomplishment. So I'm trying to give everybody the best chance to do something amazing. And it's not by adding more pressure. It's not by stressing out. It's not by some of the other things. But I also have learned this through bitter failures. So. Like, I messed them up on the day, and it started at little conference championships and stuff. It's like, I messed that up. I need to be better about this. And the level where people are ready for, they aspire to, is the most important for them. And that transcends as you get better and you ratchet up to the next level. That always transcends, So,
I mean, it's cool to like. I mean, you're training with people like Brooke and Stam and B. And Sean, like the people who have been to all of these levels. It's like, okay, the NCAA championship isn't like, it's so cool to be there. What an opportunity, but it's not like this massive thing. Like at the end of the road, it makes it a little smaller, which makes it easier to approach, which has been really cool. Because I've been there where it's been like flashing lights, like NCAA championship, and you're like, oh my gosh, like. Younger me who's never been there was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? And like the mind just starts going crazy. But when you've been there, it's like, all right, it's not as big of a deal.
Well, I would touch on this too, is and what you're talking about is like, hey, the NCAA's is not this big of a meet, it's not this big of a deal. Like, well, the sooner you can view any meet as just another meet, the better off you are. So, like, everybody, their first NCAAs, I don't care, who you are, how it works, etc., is you're like, oh, this is the pinnacle. This is the greatest thing I've always aspired to. And really, at the end of the day, it's like, it's just another meet that I have to throw far at. Now, I hope I'm heightened, and I hope I do well, and I hope I equip myself well. But really, it's just another meet that I've done so many times. The circle's the same. I get 3 reps, 3 trials, no matter what, and I just got to make the most out of them. So But I think that mindset is good. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like you're not trying to, crap on like people who care about this, but it's like, it's just another meet that I want to do well at.
Because there was times where like my only goal was to make NCAAs, just be there. And then I would get there and I didn't have that kind of level I wanted to. And the more I made the meet, the more I was like, okay, now I can do something while I'm there. And it is like, I don't think I would have been successful at being there without going and just like taking it all in and like getting all the trinkets and being like so happy just to be there and to be in the stands. And it's a cool, I mean, I love that meet.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. But then like to go to USA's and it's like, oh my, I was a little starstruck there. I'll admit it. It's so cool. I'm like throwing with world record holders and like US champions. And it's so funny because like I see Brooke every day and Brooke's just like, I'm gonna put Brooke, but like it's so cool because it's like some people are so starstruck, but it's still like, I mean, these people I've been looking up to my whole life, I'm now there. But it's funny too because like I always tell Stam, like it's the same thing. Like I used to idolize her and now she's just Stam. So it's like I have both sides of like they're still people, they're still, but it is fun to be able to say I got to throw with these people and in the same circle.
No, it's funny too because you mentioned that. Like I think the hardest part about a world championship or Olympics is like there's no higher level, but like you still want to view it as just another meet, and that's where. And we talked about with Brooke on the podcast too. Is when she won, it was just at Eugene. It was just another meet. When you're in Budapest and like, oh, it's all this pressure and all this whatever, it's hard to do well. You get to a point where even the World Championships isn't a big deal. That's where you probably do very well, right?
And that's what a cool thing that is.
What a phenomenal thing to be thinking about or saying. But like, people say that about you going to NCAAs.
Yeah, and that's sometimes
right. That's perspective.
You got to remember where you're at.
And that's the whole goal is, like I say this about younger throwers, is like, can we just get to the dance? Can we just get there and experience it? We talked a little bit with Darian the first time he made it. He was so dumbstruck.
It's so hard to not be.
The first time he got there and he walked away, he's like, I was just saying, act like I deserve it to be here. And he's like, every moment, he's like, this is the greatest thing ever.
The granola bars?
The granola bars. It's like we're at the airport in Portland and they're the thing, and they're free granola bars for athletes, and he lost his mind. This is the coolest thing ever.
I kind of was the same way. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like royalty here. It's like, it's crazy, especially indoors because it's so small of a meet. You're like, whew, watch out, world, and you're just getting all your free things. And
it's easy to lose sight of why you're there and what you're there to do, for sure.
Yeah, and I love track and field as a whole, so to not watch, like, while I'm competing is the biggest struggle ever. I'm just like, oh my God, like, you got, like, you want to look, but you're like, I need to focus, but it's like, Cindy McLaughlin is running the hurdles right now. How do you not watch that? There's always some very interesting times of like, oh my gosh. It's hard to not feel like a fan sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's funny too, because we're doing the shot put. This is last year's at USA's, and you're down the shot put, and like the stands just start getting filled up, and like I can't even get into the coaches' boxes. People took over, and I'm like zooming in on my camera, trying to watch and dodge people and whatever else. I'm like, come on, I'm just trying to. So I end up sitting in the media area. All the cameramen are kind of like eyeing me, and what are you doing in here? I was like, I'm a coach. I got athletes there. And next thing I know, Cindy McLaughlin walks out. Like, I'm trying to focus too, but like she's right next to me. I was like, oh, you look a little, starstruck, whatever. Yes. But I've hung out in the hotel with all these people. Yeah. So I was just like, hey, what's up, Cindy? Like, she doesn't know who I am as, like, Brooke Anderson's coach, but like we've rubbed shoulders enough. There's some recognition and things. And, I'm desensitized to it now, but then I forget, like, you're like watching, like, and you see, oh.
and that's where it's like, I always try to say, take away, like, I could have easily been like, oh, I went to that meet and I didn't make finals. But I got to watch Cindy McLaughlin from the infield in the Oregon Stadium. It's like, what an experience. Like, how can you be upset about that? Oh, I would have loved to make finals and like make some teams, but it's like, at the end of the day, I went home and I was happy.
Yeah, as long as you did your best and you appreciated the experience.
Yeah.
Big takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So any stories? I think your PR story is a good one. The national story is a good one. Or do you want to tag in on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nationals. I was in the main circle, I guess.
Yep. You were top 6 at regionals, so you got to be.
So I was in the higher seeded flight at nationals, which normally would freak me out a little bit. Like I was grouped in with the big dogs at the meet. And still looking back on it, I don't know But I remember being really confident. Like, I didn't have many doubts. I was like, this is going to be a good meet. Like, no matter what, I really just wanted to PR.
Yep.
And I think that kind of took away the stress of All-American.
Yep.
I started throwing. My warm-ups went well. They gave us like an hour to warm up, which took forever. So it was pretty relaxed. Like, that was kind of nice to go and just like calm down while you're out under the stadium, like in the dark in Texas, which is awesome. And
so the stage was set.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
I found my first throw like really badly. And you always say, like, if you foul the first one, it's not a good sign. And I remember you saying that, and it made me like laugh in the moment, because normally like that's something that could easily like eat you away as an athlete. Of like, oh, now I'm not going to do well because coach says this. But I'm like, he's probably freaking out right now. And it just I remember being like, nah, it's no big deal. I just lost it. So I don't know exactly when in the order I PR'd, but I threw 1740, I believe. 1740 something. Mm-hmm. And then I threw 1750 something. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting ninth.
Yep.
I was tied at ninth. So I had the second best throw, so I was in. But the girl I was tied with at the time had one more throw, and she's one of those outlier throwers that you pray you don't ever have to go up against. So I remember like walking back in kind of the coach's area, and I was like, please, Lord, just let me make this final. And I was like, if I make this final, I'm going to throw 18 meters. Like, if I can get into this and I have 3 more throws, I'm going to throw so far. Mm-hmm. I just felt it. And I made it in. And I was like, oh, it was like the biggest sigh of relief. But then it's like, I've been ninth before and not been eighth. Not at NCAAs. So, but like in that situation. And it's like, it's cool to look back on and like see how many things could have like knocked me down or made me doubt or like freaked me out. And I was just like, not even a big deal, which is it's kind of fun to look at. Yeah. And I think was it my 4th or 5th throw? I think it was one of them. I threw 18.
It was your 5th.
It was my 5th throw. And it went out. I knew it when it left my hand that it was going. I didn't think it was going to go 18 meters, but I saw it like hit like on the line. They had a grass sector, and it was pretty beat up at that point. I remember seeing it land out there. And at that point, like the world was kind of a little blurry. I was really, really amped up. Yeah. And I walked over kind of like where I had my stuff set up, and where I was pacing was like right in front of the scoreboard. Yeah. And 18 popped up, and oh my gosh, I just like, if there was like 8 walls in front of me, I would have ran through all of them. I was so pumped. And it was like, you were kind of behind me in the circle, and my family was to the side, and like all the coaches and training staff and everything were right there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it was so like, that's the moments of like the sport. I'll never forget that. Yeah. And I remember running back to you, and I was like, you're going to get your stakes now. And I was so excited, because I was like, I need to throw 18 before I bring this man steaks from my farm. And I need to throw it. And then at the time when we made that bet, I'm like, there's probably no way I throw 18. And then I threw 18 on the dot, and I was like, he's getting this guy's so excited.
I love that that's the first thing you thought of too.
It was just so cool of like the biggest stage. And that's like the confidence thing of like how many times I told myself I couldn't do that, and then to do it. Oh yeah. It's like,
that's I get goosebumps just thinking about it. That's what you live for. Cause you're like, I don't, there's no way I could do that. So you make this flipping bet. Like, if I throw 18, then I'll get you some steaks. And you just it was so nonchalant. I was like, okay. We're trying to settle the debate between whose steaks are better, but like, there's some attachments for you. I need to be motivated. So just something like it was happening out there. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure you'll be close to that. Yeah. If not there. So we'll see. But then walk back, because obviously you mentioned your first foul, but like before that, your training leading up to that, you were all the indicators were saying like PRs, 17 high. You'd PR at a conference, and you'd like, I didn't even like it. Oh, I remember you'd finish the throw, and I was like, hey, well, that's a school record. PR, good job.
Which is crazy, because for 3 years every time I walked into the circle, all I wanted was the school record.
Yeah.
All I wanted, and I finally hit it. And it didn't even, I was like, screw that record. I was done. I was so mad that day.
Yep. So you'd missed it, and I was like, I remember walking over. I was like, "Oh, school record, good job." And then you were upset because you weren't happy with how you competed or how your technique was, etc. And then I'd say a similar thing through regionals. You threw okay, you especially had a good warm up there. It's like okay, and then you threw enough that like there was no more stress, pressure, whatever. And we're obviously training through it to get ready for nationals. And then your training leading up is like, oh, you're indicating like we'll probably be like 17 high if you throw well. And then you had a good warm up. Like you said, it was long and stuff, but you had plenty of time. There wasn't any stress there, so relaxing warm up. And then you just got a little rushed and missed it on your hand type of thing. And I didn't realize I put so many doubts in your head.
No, you didn't. It's just like I remember we had that conversation so many times of like if someone fouls their first one, like it's always like it's harder to come back from that.
Well, I was going to say like there was data done in field events at the Olympic level.
Yeah, that's what we had talked about.
Most champions get a fair throw. It doesn't matter how far it is. This is like the number of people who medal get a fair first throw. Now, there's obviously those outliers, but that's like, hey, just regardless of how far it goes, just get your throw and save it, But you missed it. It was bad. You fell out the front type of thing.
Yeah, I just remember being like, oh,
no big deal.
It made me laugh in the moment.
Yeah, no big deal. And then you threw, your second one was like 1734, was it?
It was somewhere in there.
I pulled it up so I can reference it. So 1734 was your PR before. So you went 1744. So another PR, another school record. And I walked up, hey, good job. Like, you knew it was there. I was like, maybe that's it. Obviously, this is the furthest she's ever thrown in a comp. And she's like, oh, I missed it. I'm like, you missed it, huh? Like, yeah, I missed it. I got this.
Yeah, I remember it didn't come off my hand right.
Yeah.
Every time I've had like a big throw, I knew when it left my hand.
Yeah.
And that one, like, it was like a dud.
Yeah.
And then it popped up and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, that's the farthest throw of my life.
Yep. And then you take the next throw and you connect on a little bit better, but still missed it. I missed it again. But it's 1754, so another PR. And then you tied, and I don't remember where Kiela Dove was in the order, but I want to say she threw it first, and she had a 1730, I believe, but then she threw a 1754. You threw a 1754, no, I can't remember how it is, but because it was her third throw, but how it was, so we were sweating it, but we knew on second best marks.
But there was still like maybe 3 or 4 girls left in the other circle.
Yep. So in the other circle, we knew Jaden Ulrich was over there.
Yeah, there was a lot of girls who could have easily.
Yeah, like there was, and we were people like you have little rivalries of like Jaden and stuff. So they're like, oh, we're just watching. And you're sitting in a tie
word spot
for 9th with 1754, and thankfully you didn't get past.
Oh, yeah. My God. That was...
So then they combined, because there are people from the second circle that came to the primary circle with you guys. You give them a little bit of time to work through. And then you take your fourth throw. You remember your fourth throw?
No.
Your very first in the comp, getting going, and you went 1667. And you saved that one. Like, oh, whatever. I was like, well... Maybe that 1754 was it, and then you unleashed hell, 18 meters, and like you got all of that. That's the yell, everything, lined it up.
It was. I mean, like I was just watching those videos. I watch them so often because that throw is what I'm trying to recreate, and that push on the ball.
Yeah.
But like that is something I've always had pride in. Is how I compete, and it's. Like, I remember when I won states in high school, like, I was at that level of, like, just unleashing everything. The adrenaline's so high.
Yeah.
And it's, like, I wish I could muster that up at every meet and every time I throw.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It would be amazing, but it is, like, your mind knows when it's important.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do that at a small little meet with 3 teams there. It's just, like, I've seen the importance in these big meets, and that was one where it just, like... I held nothing back, and it was just a blast. And because a lot of people think I'm very mean.
No way.
Like I've had many girls come up to me and like think I'm like not a nice person because I compete very angry,
intense,
and I pace and I glare and I talk to myself and I literally look like an angry person. But I'm not very at all.
Not at all.
I compete very opposite of what I am. So sometimes like I can tell like girls talk to me and I'm like like very talkative, and I'm like I'm not like that. Do not talk to me while I'm throwing. That is one of them. So.
You're all business then, which is good. That's what you want. You're focused on the task. And I was gonna say I was so grateful you made that final, and you ended up 18 meters with 6th place.
Yeah.
In the deepest field that there's ever been. So 18 meters for 6th place is wild. There was times that you were winning NCAAs with that mark. So, so a testament to you in there, but like thankfully you made that. You got to make it in.
It was a nail biter for sure.
Yeah, we were right to the edge, and then you capitalized on it. So that was cool. This is why I coach, is for stories like that, those moments.
That was. That's one of those nights like you'll never forget, like that feeling to do it there, and first time stepping on the podium and getting that little wooden thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I didn't let go of it for the rest of the weekend. Yeah,
so cool. Well, I'd say there's 2 big takeaways there. Is your preparation was phenomenal. You were lining that up. Your prep was very good. And so even when you struggled, you were still throwing PRs. So that's a testament to all that you're doing to prepare for that, because you're messing up and still throwing the furthest you've ever thrown. So that's not easy to do. That's not something that's just on me in the training or whatever. That's something that you were doing consistently and staying focused on this, because you knew your potential, you knew your ability to throw much further. And then you capitalized on it. So you could have been happy. Like you threw 2 PRs. Yeah. It's there. Like I made the final. There's some things there, be like, nope, I'm ready to go. And you had these moments where you fouled your first throw, you fouled your fourth, or you technically, like your 4th throw was bad. You're like, no, I'm staying into the zone, and that's important. Like you didn't sacrifice that opportunity. You used every bit of it. So, so that was awesome. That was good stuff.
Definitely a very cool experience, and like that is what I trained for. That was the goal. That was the Post-it note on the wall for years and years and years. So
for sure,
to finally be able to cross that off, it was like, what a big thing.
Yep. Any other stories? Start with maybe the best one, but
the best one.
We just started with the best one. Yeah.
I was like, there's a best one.
Yeah.
I think of when you got here and you started making us do Hatfields. And I have never hated a lift more in my life than Hatfields. And I'm a tall person, so the Hatfield was not made for me. And I'm lifting with very short, compact, strong people. So
Hatfields are made for everybody. They
are not. I just like them so much, but I am trying to still learn how to love them. And I remember we had like sets of 6. And the goal last year was like to do 400 pounds or something like that. And I finally got there. I had like 6. And I did my first one. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was so slow. I like barely got up. I was like, I have 5 more. And I'm like, take 3 deep breaths. And I'm just like trying not to collapse. And I'm like, okay, do another one. And it's so slow. And there's like 100 people around ready to get it. And I'm just like, and I'm breathing so heavy. I'm taking so many deep breaths. Like I'm barely seeing the wall in front of me. And it's like just doing it. I think it took me like 5 minutes to do 6 reps. And honestly, I should have just went for it because sitting 400 pounds sitting on my neck was terrible. But I remember being like, oh my, and I just like, I got out of it and I couldn't even see anything. And I was like, that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And it's so hard because you're just staying there smiling. Like I'm just like, I want to hit you so badly right now.
Oh yes, I remember this because and you just kept going, which was amazing. Because like you're like, first one, I was like, oh, that might be too heavy. You just like, And like, yeah, she's like, oh, she's going for another one. Like, and it's this same, just so like,
so slow.
This is everything. This is the last rep.
So defeating.
And then you just go again. And like, oh, okay.
It's so defeating having your first rep be that hard and knowing you have 5 more to do.
Well, then I think it's like the 3rd rep, you start shaking. I'm like, okay, we can stop. And to be fair, I wasn't saying a word. You were just like, I got to get 6. It's just a testament to you. It's like, I got to get 6. There's no way I'm failing this. And thankfully you safely got through it, because like I was like, oh, I was just blown away. Like, how did that first one look like everything, and then you gave 5 more?
And I remember that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I remember, and it's so frustrating too, because like Hatfields are one of those lifts that like you will see girls doing like 800 pounds on it, and it's crazy. It's like, I'm not the strongest person by any means, but like I've built up a pretty good base. And it's like you're seeing these girls, and then it's like I do it, and then Jean, like my training partner, she's 5'6" and who I can outlift and everything, hops in and does it like it's not. I'm like, are you kidding me? That drove me nuts. Yeah. I'm like, I have to be doing something wrong. It was just they are terrible.
Yeah, you get everything out of those.
They're so miserable.
Yeah.
They definitely they were.
Adaptation. And this is something else too, is almost always you throw far right after.
And I hate that. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. It's like, how, again, I was just blown away. Like, how, like, normal people don't throw this far. Like, they're wrecked for like 2-3 days minimum. Yeah. You're like, the next day, I think we came back and did like a Sunday lift. And then the very next day, you threw hard. I was like, hey, Mal, I think we need to make this your pre-meet. So that was so phenomenal.
Like, I've always loved to bench heavy, because then I feel like I can really feel the ball. So like, it only makes sense for the legs. It's just benching heavy does not make me want to like fall down a set of steps like Hatfields does. And last year, like, of course, the apartment I was in last year, I had to climb up like 18 flights of stairs every time, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there's 2 takeaways. You can do more than you believe is possible. And it starts like in the Hatfields, in those lifts, like on paper, there's no, if it was me, I'd be like, oh, stop. But you just like, you kept doing it, and you can do the amazing things way more than you thought you could.
Yeah,
you know? And that just starts in those easy moments for me anyway. Easy for me to see is like, hey, you just kept going.
I mean, having good training partners, being competitive, that's always a big one. Because I was like, I will not fail this, and Jean get it. I will not. I will not have that failure listed, because I knew I would never live it down.
Like, I beat Jean in everything.
Wait.
This is it.
I cannot let a little Hatfield set of 6 knock me down and ruin my reign. Because normally we wouldn't compete very much, because it's like, it's a little unfair. I'm like, I'm so much bigger than you. We are 2 different people. Yeah. But we were always so competitive with that.
That's good.
And she finally found one she could push. And she pushed. She's like, oh, I'm going to put 20 more pounds on. I'm like, okay. Please stop.
Yeah, I guess the first time we did 6s, you were in a bad way. But like in season, I remember the same story. And just like, you threw far. I was like, whoa, well, maybe that's the
worst part. I wish I did it so that I wouldn't have to do them. Because you're like, oh, you're going to throw far. And I'm like, yep.
No, that's like, well, and the point is like, well, I'm going to sandbag now, so I don't have to do it. But like, whatever works, and whatever, everybody, we're just trying to unlock your potential, and whatever works for you, and be unique on that. So that's a good story.
Yeah, that one was terrible. And it's like early, and that was like our group getting adjusted to Hatfields was, I wish like there was video evidence, because it was like, it looked like a battlefield, and like we lost. It's just like we're all sprawled on the floor, and like people's legs are like shoes half untied, like barely breathing. Some people are throwing up. Just like, it looked like we had never done any physical activity ever in our life. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's a good perspective too. So like you take over a team and a program is like, I know it's a lot. Everyone say like, but you'll get better at it. I promise you, you'll get better at it. Just take care of yourself. You'll get better at it. People are like, no, this is death. Why would we do this? And now, like half fields are still hard, but like the workouts don't seem this oppressive thing. You can get through them and work through it.
Get through them.
So that's good perspective to remember where you started and where you're at now.
Oh my gosh, it was like literally going to the worst thing you could imagine every 2 weeks. It was just like, this is the hardest thing. And like to get out of bed to know you're going to do that is on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It would take us like 4 hours to get through that lift.
It's so long.
Like you like walk around and like tap someone and you're like, all right, it's time. It's like you have to get up and you're like crying. Just I mean, like our half fields took us forever.
Yeah.
Now we're finally
Now you've adapted. Yep.
But oh my gosh, what a soft one. I'm like, what a bunch of softies we are. Like, we can't.
So you appreciate from my perspective now. It's like we got a lot of room to get better.
And like we couldn't walk for like 2 months. It's terrible. Oh my gosh, the Hatfield pain after that is terrible.
Well, thanks for working through it and believing in it. I know there's some doubts there.
Oh my gosh. That's I'm like, do I want to do this? Is this worth it?
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely is in the end, but it is good times.
That's awesome. Any other stories you can think of?
I don't know. Do you have any stories?
No, I think indoors this year was a fun story. Right?
Big Tens?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was, I will say, like, it was a very big learning experience, not just in the sport, but I think like overall as a person. Like I struggled all indoor season, dealing with a injury, like especially to my back, like something I've kind of always had there as a possibility, knowing my back could kind of like go at any point. Yeah. So it to happen like right at the beginning of indoor, my last year was kind of like someone like a kick to the back of the knees. So
I'm gonna walk back real quick. Your fall was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You were throwing lights out all fall. And then you kind of got the sense like, okay, I'm kind of breaking down. You still threw far at blue and white, but you like November, you were lights out. That was better than you were at NCAAs. Like you were crushing it, and then flash forward, you have an injury through the break. Essentially, it's easy to call that an injury, and I'd say to back up further, like okay, you were through 18 meters, you're an All-American, but you never had a Big Ten medal. So like, and then I think that's important. So it's like, I need to make sure I get a medal this year. You know, I'm going to make sure I get that's one thing that I've got a All-American trophy, but no Big Ten medal. And so you could see like you carried that in, and then you have those moments when injuries, and that's the hardest part is mentally is like, I'm not going to be able to achieve my goals. I'm not going to achieve what I worked hard for. And then, to where you're at. Sorry. So I want to preface that a little bit.
So it was kind of, working through the injury and, working through a pain that's never really been there before or I've had to deal with long term was very difficult to not be able to throw the way I like to throw or the way I know I can throw. So I kind of very much took like a backseat approach to throwing. I remember it was like, okay, I know I can throw far. I haven't done it since I've been injured, but I know I can. I remember I went to, like, it was our last home meet, and Jean came to watch, and I didn't throw far, and I was so frustrated. And she's like, you literally don't look like yourself. She's like, I know you're hurt, but, like, you're throwing like you're scared. And I was like, I was a little mad at first. I'm like, okay, you don't know how, like, the pain I'm in. Then I'm like, okay, she's right. Like, I'm throwing like I'm scared. So, like, it was that, like, I came in the next day and I threw. And I was like, I can still accelerate a ball. I still have a big bench. I still have strong legs. Like, I can move a ball. This isn't going to hurt my back. So I came in and it was just like, just accelerate the ball. And that whole week I had a good training and working up to it. And that was kind of a meet I went into, and it felt very similar to NCAAs of like, I really didn't have any doubts. I wasn't really worried. It was the first time I've gone into a Big Tens and not been like seated because my mark was so low. but my overall PR was the best in the meet. It was just like, it was kind of cool of like, if I do what I know I can do, I can help my team win a Big Ten championship. And that was like the really driving factor. It was like, it was kind of a point of like, don't do it. I don't need to do it for me at that point. Like, I would have loved to make NCAAs, but that wasn't even important to me anymore. So my training was going well. I was practicing. I was having good feelings. My warm-ups went great. And so I threw 17 flat, I think. 17, just 17.
Was it 17.00? You just love throwing whole meters.
So I threw that, and the competition was so close. There's a girl from Nebraska who had 17.11 or somewhere very low 17s. And I had a pretty far one that I sector fouled and just wasn't able to line one up. But like walking away from that, being able to throw 17 after the season and kind of the doubts. And I mean, there was a point in indoor where I was like, am I going to be able to throw a shot put again? After the one meet, it was like, I'm throwing in pain. And it was like, can I ever do this again and do it to the ability I want to do it to? So it was very difficult because I got done and it was like, wow, the gold medal was this far away. It's something that I've thrown many, many times, but just kind of, that was a good time to take that step back and like a perspective of, I've been hurt, I haven't been throwing far, and like just in that day, that was a huge win. And I got a medal and I was like so excited. And I would have loved to stand on top of the podium there. That would have been awesome. But in that moment, that was like one of the biggest wins of my career.
For sure.
Just being, and it's so, that's where like I struggle with not worrying what other people think, because other people, they'd be like, this girl's an 18-meter shot putter and she got second with 17. Like, try not to be embarrassed by that. But I'm like, if they only knew like the struggle to get back to 17 was very big, and it's still something I'm working on, but it's just like, it was a very big moment for me.
As I said, when you came back, you're like, hey, I've never gotten a Big Ten medal. I want that. And you found another thing to be hungry about. And because it's been easy to be like, well, I gotta, throw further. And then you had that moment where it's like, shoot, this might be career ending. You're going through these things and then still, rise to that occasion and believe in yourself and your preparation, your ability to do that. I, on the outside looking in, had the warm-up proceeded better through finals, because somebody from the first flight made the final. Yeah. And they gave them an exorbitant amount of time to warm up. Yeah. And like we knew you only had so many good throws in you, just dealing with where you were at. So like, and you had a bunch all clustered at 17, it was like 1690s, and then that foul, like, it's like, and it seemed like it was exasperated when you torque a little too much. It's like you just got around it a little late, and then you fouled it at the front and went out of the sector. And that was, even all that being said, but had you been able to continue through it, I think it was yours to win. I think you had that throw had it not been iced, because the officials took forever.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I could have walked away from it like just being so upset with, I fouled a big one that would have won, or the officials ruined it, like this and that. But it was just like, it was a very, very kind of like wholesome day, and it was kind of good to remind myself like, this is more powerful than anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had the same story. I was proud. I knew what you've been through. I'm proud of just your ability to stay tough, to be tenacious, and keep finding ways. And we're still doing that, but I think we got a good plan. We haven't seen the last of Mal.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like, we talked about this recently, of you set goals and it's really hard to not feel like you're in the position to reach them. But like that's like mind control of, you got to control what you can control. I mean, I can do rehab, I can do all kinds of things to get better, but in the end, it comes down to, is my body healthy? Is my mind ready? So yeah, it's been very tough. Of my last year, I come back and I'm an All-American, and it's like you're struggling to put out these numbers that you're expected to, or not expected to, but in my mind, I expect myself to be able to throw these numbers. So then to kind of feel like you're back where taking a step back. Yeah. It's difficult. It's definitely been very tough. Yeah.
But there's some big takeaways too, and you got to pull the whole data into it as well, because like first discus throw comp, you're just great series. There's things that athletically you're still improving. It's just sometimes when you're focused on your primary events so much, you're like in the minutia of all that, and like I know I'm capable of better, and this is how I did it. I have to just be pliable and change how you're doing that. So just got to keep on. You got plenty of time to be ready. So it's exciting. As I said, we haven't seen the last of Big Throw Mal. So for sure.
Hopefully not.
Any other stories there? Or pivot to maybe some words of advice?
Words of advice, I guess. Just enjoy it. Like, I think if you take away my school record or my All-American, like, I would still leave here happy, because I got to meet some of my best friends and people who are going to be in my life for like the rest of my life. And this sport has brought me so much to just like really, really kind of bring yourself in check and remember why you do this sport, why you love this sport. And if like you're really struggling to find those things, like that's the time to have a conversation and kind of refocus, of, I don't know, I'm kind of struggling for words here. Like just love what you do, and it takes more work to be miserable and make people around you miserable than it is to just be happy and positive. So just be happy and positive, and the world works a lot better, and it keeps going around.
Further words of advice, things you like to tell.
This has been something that I've, relayed to other people, and it's been really important for myself, is like, remember your values. So like for me, my faith is really important, and family, and kind of make sure you have an understanding of where those things lie and the importance of those. Like throwing is so important to me, but like my family is more important. And school, like it used to be, I always say school. Yeah. In reality, like they're probably of equal, like me getting good grades and getting a degree is like, that's, why I came to college. But like you have to be good in class to have good training. Like that's so important. So just remembering those things of like, so when throwing isn't going well, it's not like, oh, my whole life is falling apart. It's like, I still have 2 parents that love me, and I have siblings, and like I have the support group around me that is always there and very supportive. And that helps, I think, for when you are in those valleys of like keeping your head on straight, of nobody's going anywhere because I didn't throw a ball far, like I'm not like I'm sleeping out in the street tonight because I couldn't throw over this line at practice. And that's always been really important to just remember those things. This sport is everything, but it's also not much at the same time. Like it's so cool to be able to do this, but in the end, just remember the value of things.
For sure. And I think how I like to think of it, because some people use that as like, well, my family's more important, I'm going to go to this wedding.
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
That's
and like yes, your family's important, you're going to be there, but what can you still train through that and like look at you like, no, family's more important, they're going to need me there for this whatever. It's like, okay, well, like yes, but don't sacrifice your own potential. And I think throwing is, and I would say track and field in general, is the people who do well in school usually do well in track. people who are good people, have good friendships, good wholesome relationships, types of stuff with their family or their friends or their teammates, guess what? They do well too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so like I think the good things just keep flowing if you keep things in perspective. Is like, yes, we're trying to throw a ball far or a stick far or a disc far or whatever. But what's important is that this is the vehicle to open up other opportunities and good experiences. And it's a great test to see, like, I'm good at things. I can do well at things, you know? And so if you keep all that in perspective, and, you know, we're kind of, it's taboo to talk about our faith and whatnot and your religious outlooks, but I think belief in a higher power or there's things greater than you transcends all that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Whatever religion you subscribe to or, you know, a higher power process you subscribe to, believing that there's something bigger than you is good. You know, it's important to be that way. And like,
absolutely,
you know, this is a vehicle for us to do great things and show this. And we have a platform to, you know, people think that we're cool and we're good at stuff because of what we do.
Yeah.
But use that to be gracious and to be a good person. And that's one thing I want to say above all else. And there's some stories that you would say that maybe it's not for this, but you're a phenomenal teammate. There's been some times where you've had to check people and, you know, choose some people out, you said. And maybe this isn't the way to describe that stuff, but like, I'd say this, people who chew you out and who are motivating you are the ones that care about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They care, they want to see you succeed. And if you're messing up, you want those people, you want the Mallorys to chew you out. You know? And so expect better of yourself, do more, you know, live to a higher calling, live to a higher standard. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you do good in all these things, then you do good in what matters too. So I think that's a huge takeaway, is to, you know, we want to be our best self in every avenue. And that's the thing, like, we get caught up in balance. Like, oh, we got to balance things. Like, we don't want to be too much in track. Like, no, let's fill our cup with everything. You know, you're sweating in the bucket. Let's also, you know, do your faith and your family in the bucket too. Let's just pour ourselves fully into everything. And I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, I hear that a lot of, like, people saying, well, just don't be a track athlete. And there's two sides to it, of like, the track is the biggest part of my life, and it has been for so many years, but you have to have, they don't have to be the same size.
Exactly.
But you have to have other pieces of your life, and you have to have things, different outlets, because it can be so overwhelming, especially when things aren't going well. And like, I give a lot of props to my teammates, who a lot of them are my, like, closest friends, we're able to spend time together and it not be about track. Especially the older we've gotten, we're like, the whole world doesn't revolve around this. You know, we can go watch a movie and we don't have to rant about track the entire time. Like, there's different ways to, you know, cope and get through it. And that's why I give a lot of props to my teammates. I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. They definitely make me very angry sometimes, but it's a joy to be around them. And definitely some of them do get mad at me because I want the best for everybody. I think it's possible for everybody, and it's just how you approach it. So sometimes, and that's why I have to remind them. I'm like, oh, it's because I love you that I get frustrated when you don't do the things. But I expect the same thing from me in return. So.
Exactly. Well, you touched on this, like having the people that you wouldn't want anybody else to go through this, and you're not always best friends with them. You're not always like the best of pals, and I hope you stay in contact with them when you all graduate, move on, and you can continue that. But like, that is something that's kind of special, is having teammates who are invested in each other. And that's something I always think about as a coach. Well, how can you continue these types of things? And it is hard because we're kind of getting to a spot where it has to be sterile and we have to just be business, and that camaraderie can be lost. And some people think like, hey, we got to just go party together to have fun. Or I was like, no, there's a blend of, like, we can just be good companions or good teammates to each other and still get away from things and talk about other interests we might have that are commonalities and stuff. And I think that's important to just, like, you don't have to be the best of friends, but like having outlets or things like that people can kind of subscribe to if they need. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough not to be siloed or have cliques, where
Absolutely.
some people have a hard time, but like it is so important to have that support structure of peers that, you might not be best friends with, but
well, I would
you
say
can still get along well with.
You can be a good teammate to everybody. You don't have to be good friends with everybody, but there's no reason you shouldn't be a good teammate.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all on the same team.
Yeah.
You spend 3 or 4 hours together every day.
Yeah.
Like, you can get past that.
Yeah.
You can put on a smile and be nice.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I talk about. It takes more effort to be a bad teammate than it does to be a good teammate. So it's kind of those small things, and that in the end, if that builds culture and
for sure,
teamwork and all that jazz.
What does being a good teammate entail?
I think it's like you expect greatness from everyone. Like, it's how the standards I want people to have for me and the expectations, like, I hold other people to those. And I bite my tongue a lot because it's like, not everybody wants the same things I do. But just like being able to be open with people, I think being able to share knowledge, but without barking at people and telling them and ordering them. So like the younger teammates that, come to me and say, like, can you help me with this? Like, absolutely, I'll help you. But like, there's different ways to look about it.
Yeah.
So just being open, but not being like, oh, I know everything. Because I don't. And it's fun to kind of be able to share certain experiences, but
yeah, you said, there's a balance between being humble about things and also being confident, like, this will help you, right? And I think the other thing too, and if you get nothing else, I'd say out of this is, like, you didn't say be cool. You didn't say, like, give people out. You said hold them to a high standard. That's what being a good teammate is, right? Hold them to excellence. And that might not always mean throwing far, but let's train right. Let's recover well. Let's do these things. Let's hold ourselves to a high standard, because this is we're all wearing the same thing on the chest. It's not necessarily what's on our back. We don't have names on our back, but like, being a good teammate is holding us all to a standard, because we want to be accountable to that stuff. That's what a good teammate is. It's not always the cool friend who has fun things to do, or like, is the life of the party or whatever it is. It's like being a good teammate is holding people to a high standard. The one that you hope that they would hold you to, because that's the benefit you want out of it. You want somebody to be there when you're struggling, to say, like, hey, no, you got this, lift yourself up. You want, Jean's level of accomplishment and yours are very different, but she recognizes in you, like, there's a camaraderie there. Like, you are not trying hard. You're not giving your best. And that's what you want, right? Like, that's really at the end of the day what being a good teammate is. But that's scary, because she might have risked her friendship by going too hard. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, knowing that you want that too, and it's a roundabout. Yeah,
it's such a big, like, there's so many things involved in it. I think being a teammate, being friends, and all those things, and it's just like, you can't force somebody to want it, or you can't force somebody to try or put an effort. But if you know that somebody has this goal, like, I don't think it ever hurts to be a gentle reminder of, hey, like, I know you want this, and this isn't how you get there. But there's definitely different ways to go about it. And, like, I've been lucky that, like, Tyler, he was that person for me. Like, he's always known that I've had big goals. And he will call you out when you are slacking, but it sucks to hear at the time, because it's like, oh man, I am. But it's what you need to hear of, like, why wouldn't you practice on this day, or why wouldn't you do that extra set, or why wouldn't you do those drills? And
I think that's just a lot of people just think, the fun teammates are the good teammates. Like, nope, the ones that you're friends with, it's really the ones who push you, who you might be a little pissed off at for them calling you out on stuff. Those are actually the good teammates, and that's embracing that, I think, is a good takeaway. So
you can be both. You can be both.
Absolutely. I think, but the most important is keeping each other, being cool and keeping your values. You're not trying to put anybody in the ground. You're trying to hold them accountable. And I mean, for me, like, my understanding is flipped, because, what's the opposite of love? It's like, well, that's obvious. Hate. Like, no, actually, it's apathy. Love and hate are very similar. So there's times you're like, oh, I really hate this person, but I also love them. The strong emotions. Apathy, not caring, is the opposite. So some people are like, I don't care. It's just you do you. That's the death of a good program, a good culture. You know, it's like, I just don't care. I'm just going to do me, not worry about anyone else. And so we want to continue to bring that. Obviously, I think, you know, as the next generation, whatever team you're part of, whether it's Penn State's or whatever, is be a good teammate and hold people to a high standard, but be caring and be their friend at the same point. Come from a place of, I want to see us all do well. And I don't have an ego about that. I just know you gotta be trying harder than this, and it's a tough balance.
And I will say it's easier to say, "Why don't you come do this with me?" than say you should do this and point the finger of, "Oh, you don't see somebody's warming up? Okay, have them do your warm up with you." Someone's not getting through their lift. Okay, you're gonna come lift with me this time. Like that kind of stuff. It's very easy to be that person to bark and to point fingers and boss. But
hold them to the same standard you want to be held to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect advice. Good, I love it. Anything else?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Any other words of wisdom? If you don't know this about Mallory is well liked by everyone.
I don't know about that.
It's true. I've no matter what person on staff, you know, anybody who runs into her training room, everybody loves Mal. So she's struck the good balance. So being a good athlete and a good person, good student, all those things. So
yeah, I mean, when I came into Penn State, I wanted to, you know, break records, but I think this program has seen so many people, like being somebody who can leave and say like, oh, I'd made a difference other than just throwing far. Whether that's on teammates' lives or just like the program in general. So
absolutely,
that's always been kind of the goal.
Well, you'll always be remembered for me, and that's why I want to do this. So I know it's not always your favorite to be out here and stuff.
I'm not meant to be in front of a camera.
No, you did. Like, it's amazing, and I want your stories to be out there and your opinion to be there and have a legacy of, because you're going to be a lot of people's heroes, a lot of people's hero, whether you realize it or not. And you're going to give back as a teacher and whatever profession you pursue, but here in this moment when you've had such good success, we want to make sure we're documenting it and cataloging it. And it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. If you have anything else, but I think we got a lot here and a lot of good things. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. If you have anything else you'd like to say, if not, well,
I don't think so. I feel like I've done nothing but talk for a few hours.
No, you did great. Then you get in the moment where you just like don't even think about the camera and nothing there, and
it's a little weird.
You start out a little embarrassed, and then you start getting into a groove.
I feel like my cheeks have been red for this whole thing.
No, you've been great. That's awesome. I struggle with it too. Like, I'm not big in the camera. I always hide behind stuff.
I was very shocked that you were starting a little podcast with the camera going.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about doing a video on it, because I did one when I was super like, and talking about this. But I mostly have done this because all my coaches are passing on. Mm-hmm. And like, I have a stack of videos and some things there. It's like, they're unfortunately they're dying. It's just like, I was like, I need to do something to show my appreciation of that. And I just don't want these things. I was maybe having a midlife crisis about.
Well, I mean, that's a sport too. Like, I remember I listened to a podcast with Josie Schaefer from Wisconsin when I was younger. And just like, I really took so much from that. Yeah. Because she's somebody I always looked up to. Mm-hmm. I've competed against her. She's always been a great, great competitor to me. So just like hearing her work ethic and how she's gotten to where she was like huge. Yeah. And I even told some of the younger ones to listen to it. It's just like, that's what you get from it. Like, everyone has a story. Everyone has a process.
Exactly. I don't want legends like yourself to go right off into the sunset without a story, without a song to be sung in your name, without your legacy. That's also what it comes back to, because I think back in my career, I was like, man, could I just be documenting this more? And like, I say stories about people and struggles they've gone through, and it's like, well, I want to hear it from them. Yeah. So when I started, and it's like, nobody's too good or too bad to like share their experience and learn from that. And I think it's easy to go with the better athletes and say this, but ideally I can get through most seniors and have them on here speaking about their experiences and stuff. And hopefully there's something to glean from all of them. And get some platforms for that. So yeah, I said it's not my my first one, but my desire to like give back or have that out there, have your stories out there more so than anything.
Yeah, like this is younger Mal would have gotten a lot from this.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, hopefully I can keep sharing it. It's in the YouTubes forever, hopefully.
The YouTubes.
But thanks again. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy and got a lot going on.
I'm not busy at all. You know better. I'm living the super senior easy dream.
Yeah. But taking the time and I know this wasn't easy for you, but I appreciate it. But
thanks to you.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, we'll end there and catch us next time.